She's like, no one knows who she is. What we hear behind the scenes is that she's a bully who fires everybody, runs around only worried about herself.
Megyn Kelly didn't tiptoe. She sat forward, looked into the camera, and finally said out loud what had been bouncing around online for years. People are questioning Meghan Markle's age and the story around it. Not in a light celebrity gossip way, but in a way that drags in photos, timelines, school records, and even royal paperwork. That moment lit the fuse. Because this isn't really a story about a number on a birthday cake. It's a story about how a life can be turned into a brand, and how every tiny crack in that brand becomes fuel for the internet.
Smells like Rio. Down south. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so
We're in so much trouble.
On paper, Meghan's story is clean and polished. Born in 1981, grew up in Los Angeles, Catholic school, then Northwestern University, small acting jobs, then Suits, a royal wedding, a Duchess title, 2 children, and finally a move to California. The timeline has been repeated so often it feels carved in stone. But online, people started holding that timeline up against old photos and public records and asking, does everything really fit this perfectly? That's the pressure point Meghan leaned into. Not just the chatter about a few missing years, but the idea that official stories can be shaped, edited, and quietly adjusted over time. Critics point to college photos where Meghan appears with classmates who now list much earlier birth years, or to how her school and early career pictures seem to appear in carefully timed waves rather than all at once. To them, it doesn't feel random. It feels curated. Then there's the paperwork. When Archie was born in 2019, his birth certificate originally listed Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, as his mother. Weeks later, it was changed to just Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. The palace brushed it off as a minor adjustment. For many viewers, it was something else. Proof that even documents that look final aren't always final. Put all of that together and you get the real question sitting under the age rumor. If the public version of Meghan's life can be polished, trimmed, and rewritten in small ways, what else might have been adjusted before anyone was paying attention? From here, the story isn't just about how old Meghan Markle is. It's about how a rumor this specific grew so big, how every new document or photo gets folded into it, and what it says about celebrity, the monarchy, and the cost of turning a human being into a perfectly managed storyline.
Out. What are you trying to say, lady?
for once and for all. Spit it out is right.
Once Meghan opened the door, she didn't just leave it at people are talking about Meghan's age. She started walking through the patterns that made so many viewers suspicious in the first place. Not to prove anything, but to show why the rumor refuses to die. She began with something simple: photos. Meghan's teenage and college pictures are everywhere online. But when you line them up next to her supposed birth year, some people say the math feels off. Classmates who say they graduated the same year now list birthdays that make them several years older than Meghan. In some shots, she looks exactly like you'd expect for her claimed age. In others, critics argue she seems a bit too mature compared to the friends around her. None of this is evidence. People age differently. Lighting matters, hair and makeup matter. But once viewers are in detective mode, they stop seeing normal variation and start seeing clues. Megyn pointed out something else: how Meghan's early life is presented in carefully controlled pieces. A school photo here, a yearbook page there, a college memory in one interview, a childhood story in another. Nothing illegal or strange about that on its own. But critics say the way these pieces are released feels curated, like a highlight reel rather than a full record. It's not that information is missing, it's that the gaps between what we see and what we don't see leave room for the imagination to run wild.
Relatable person with her own flower sprinkles and, candle line. And I just sit around being like a working mom. I'm just like all the other working moms.
Right.
From there, Megyn turned to something harder to ignore: documents that actually changed after the fact. She reminded her audience about Archie's birth certificate. At first, it had Meghan's full legal name on it. Later, it was updated to remove Rachel Meghan and leave only the title. The palace said it was a simple administrative fix. Meghan's camp blamed the palace. Either way, it proved one uncomfortable point: even official paperwork is not untouchable. If a document most people think of as permanent can be edited once, people start asking how many other details might have been adjusted without anyone noticing. That's really where the age rumor gets its power. It isn't that anyone has produced a smoking gun showing a different birth year. No one has. It's that the audience has watched Meghan's story change in small ways over time. Names altered on documents, job histories framed in a certain light, timelines stretched or compressed in interviews, emotional stories that don't always line up perfectly when repeated. Most of that can be explained by normal human memory, PR strategy, or simple mistakes. But Meghan's point was that once trust is shaken, every tiny inconsistency feels bigger. So the question quietly shifted. It stopped being, is Meghan really the age she says she is? And became something deeper. How much of what we've been told about her life is a polished version instead of the plain one? Meghan didn't claim to know the real answer. She didn't show a hidden birth certificate or a secret record. What she did was something almost more powerful in the court of public opinion. She showed how many people already doubt the official story, and how easy it is, once you see one adjustment, to believe there might be others hiding in the background.
After everything, think about it. After everything, she had a website called The TIG, which was like a lifestyle thing. Then she gets a job on Suits.
Meghan then zoomed out and asked the uncomfortable question almost nobody in mainstream media wants to touch. Why would a public figure ever want their age to be fuzzy in the first place? She didn't say Meghan definitely did anything wrong, but she did explain how age in Hollywood and in royal life is never just a number, it's a tool. In the industry Meghan came from, being a few years younger can make you more castable, more marketable, easier to sell as the fresh face or the ingenue. And in the world she married into, being a certain age at a certain moment shapes how the story lands. The late-in-life love story, the late 30s first-time mother, the modern woman who had a whole career before marrying a prince. Age becomes part of the brand message. That's where Meghan suggested people look closer. Not at one birth date on a page, but at the way Meghan has repeatedly repackaged herself. First as the struggling actress, then as the activist, then as the royal outsider, then as the California survivor of a cold institution. Each phase came with its own tone, its own backstory, and its own way of describing her journey. When you watch all those versions back to back, some viewers feel like they're watching a character being rewritten rather than a person simply growing up.
Right. I think it's before that part in the Emily episode, which is they're eating smash burgers.
The age rumor slides perfectly into that mood. If someone is willing to smooth out certain life details for the sake of a cleaner narrative, people start to wonder how far that smoothing goes. Meghan also pointed to something subtle, how Meghan often frames herself in relation to time. I was so young when, at that stage of my life, I'd already been through so much by then. None of those lines are suspicious on their own. Everyone talks like that. But for people already primed to doubt, those phrases become hooks. They pause, rewind, and try to match the story being told with the official dates on record. When the emotion in the story and the math in the timeline don't feel like a perfect fit, trust slips a little more. In the end, Meghan's focus wasn't just the rumor itself, but what it reveals about the bigger picture. The more a public figure leans on carefully scripted storytelling, the more even small, normal inconsistencies start to look like cover-ups. And once the audience feels that shift from real person to managed product, they don't just question an age, they question everything wrapped around it. From there, Meghan shifted the spotlight away from Meghan for a moment and onto the machine around her. The PR teams, the streaming platforms, the glossy interviews, and the royal institution itself. Because as she pointed out, age rumors don't grow in a vacuum. They grow when people feel like they're being managed instead of simply told the truth. She reminded viewers of how many times Meghan's public story has been rolled out in high production settings.
Favorite burger joint?
We have it. We think you're talking about slot 37. Let's see.
A long primetime interview here, a carefully edited documentary there, a podcast episode with dramatic lighting and backing music somewhere else. Every time, the audience is walked through the official version of events: childhood, family, struggles, success, royal, life, escape. It's emotional, it's polished, and it's very controlled. Meghan's argument was simple. The more heavily produced a personal story becomes, the more people start to look for cracks. Not because they are evil or obsessed, but because they instinctively know that anything this polished has gone through several rewrites. When one detail changes on paper, like a name on a birth certificate, it acts like a trigger. People go back and wonder what else might have been quietly adjusted while they weren't looking. She drew a line between that feeling and the age debate. No one has presented a new official document showing a different birth year. What they do have is a pattern. Dates that shift in retellings, descriptions that grow more dramatic over time, and small factual points that are corrected only after the public notices. Most viewers would forgive any one of those things on its own, but together, over years, they create an atmosphere of doubt, where even something as basic as a birthday becomes fair game for speculation.
She gets noticed by Prince Harry. She lands the gorilla. She marries him. She wrests him away from his family.
Meghan also noted how the palace's own handling of Meghan has unintentionally fed the rumor culture. At times, the royal side has overcorrected, issuing statements that later had to be clarified or softened. At other times, they've slipped into total silence, refusing to comment at all while stories spiral. To ordinary people watching from the outside, that combination overreaction followed by underreaction looks messy. And when an institution that prides itself on precision and protocol appears confused, it doesn't just hurt its own image. It gives the internet permission to fill in the gaps with whatever theory it likes. In Meghan's view, that's the real danger zone. Not that Meghan secretly has a different birth year hidden somewhere, but that the public has lost confidence in anyone telling a straightforward story about her. They don't fully believe Meghan, they don't fully believe the palace, they don't fully believe the media, so they turn to each other. Comment sections, threads, TikToks, and start building their own narrative out of fragments. Once that happens, Meghan warned, it almost doesn't matter what the truth actually is. If the audience feels like they were being spun, they will cling to rumors because rumors feel like the only thing not pre-approved by a PR team. And when people begin to trust speculation more than official statements, you don't just have a celebrity with a reputation problem. You have a culture that stopped believing anyone at all. In the final stretch of her commentary, Meghan turned away from documents and dates and went after something bigger. Why this all feels so personal to people who have never met Meghan Markle and never will. Because on its face, arguing over a celebrity's age sounds ridiculous, yet millions of people click, watch, and share it. Why? Her answer was blunt. Meghan isn't just a person anymore, she's a symbol. For some, she represents breaking free from a toxic system. For others, she represents manipulation dressed up as victimhood. For some, she's the woman who exposed a cold institution. For others, she's the woman who used that institution when it suited her and turned on it when it didn't. When someone becomes a symbol, every tiny detail of their life becomes a referendum on what people already believe, age included. Meghan argued that the age rumor is really just one more expression of a deeper feeling, that Meghan's story has always been presented to the world more like a scripted series than a rough human life. We've seen the carefully lit scenes, the dramatic pauses, the emotional lines that land at just the right moment. We've watched the role changes, actress, activist, duchess, escapee, entrepreneur. Each new chapter comes with new language, new angles, new revelations. That's not unusual in our era. Most public figures rebrand, but when the audience senses that the core of the story keeps moving, they start looking for something solid to test it against. Age is one of the only fixed facts we expect not to move. So if people feel they can't fully trust the storytelling, they attack the foundation instead. That's why the rumors stick, Meghan suggested, not because anyone has solid proof, but because they fit how a lot of viewers already feel, that they've been sold a version of Meghan that doesn't quite match the sum of all the little details. She didn't claim to know Meghan's real age. She didn't wave around a secret certificate. Instead, she left her audience with a warning aimed at both sides. To Meghan and her team, the more you lean on heavy production, dramatic reinventions, and half-corrected facts, the more you invite people to dig, doubt, and fill in the blanks themselves. To the public, the more you rely on rumors to fix that doubt, the further you drift from anything that can actually be proven. In other words, everyone loses. Meghan's final point was less about Meghan and more about the culture that built her up and now tears her apart. We've created an environment where personal narratives are content, pain is a storyline, and my truth often takes the place of verifiable truth. In that world, age rumors are almost inevitable because everything becomes up for debate, even the numbers that should be boring. So, does it really matter if Meghan is exactly the age she says she is? On a human level, probably not. On a cultural level, Meghan argued, it matters a lot. Because the fact that so many people are willing to believe otherwise without hard evidence says as much about our appetite for suspicion as it does about Meghan's history. In the end, the question hanging over the whole segment wasn't just, is her age story accurate? It was, what happens to trust when every public figure is a brand? Every brand is a performance, and every performance leaves the audience wondering what's underneath. That's the uncomfortable truth Meghan left hanging in the air. Once people stop believing the simple parts of a story, it's nearly impossible to get them back for the complicated ones.